I've worked 18 years as a ranger at Bryce Canyon National Park. In all that time, I've seen things that are hard to explain. Footprints where no one should have been. Night sounds that don't match any animal in the local records. And tourists claiming they saw a huge figure among the stone pillars at dusk. But what happened in May of 2019 still haunts me. A group of 3 hikers, a couple from Oregon and their photographer friend, camped near the Fairyland Loop area, a section we usually close off during the off-season due to landslides and aggressive wildlife. The next morning, only 2 came down the trail, covered in dirt and in shock. The photographer, they said, had vanished. At first, we assumed it was an accident. The terrain is treacherous. One wrong step can send you 20 meters down. But when we reached the spot they indicated, there was no sign of a fall. The only things visible were broken branches and deep marks in the ground, as if something heavy had dragged something uphill. We found his tripod bent and his camera still recording. The footage showed a campfire, laughter, wind moving through the pines. Then, a low sound, like a growl, made all 3 turn around. The last seconds showed eyes shining in the darkness and the trembling beam of a flashlight. The camera dropped. After that, only heavy footsteps and the scream that cut off abruptly. The body was never found. We searched with thermal drones and tracking dogs for 5 days. The dogs picked up a scent near a narrow gap between the hoodoos, but they backed away for no apparent reason, whining, refusing to move forward. One of them bit through its leash and ran off. There were no further traces. A week later, a fellow ranger reported hearing something like a moan mixed with heavy breathing near Queen's Canyon. He said he followed it with his flashlight until he saw a tall figure, covered in dark hair, watching him from the shadows. He didn't shoot. He said it didn't look like a bear or a man. The case was closed as an accidental disappearance, but among us rangers, we know it doesn't fit. No animal in the region leaves footprints that large or drags bodies uphill without leaving blood. Every so often, someone reports screams echoing between the canyon walls. Always at night, always where the wind suddenly dies. I still patrol that area, but never alone. And every time the echo throws my own footsteps back at me, I can't help but think we're not the only ones watching Bryce Canyon. I was 26 when I went camping with my friend Eric in Bryce Canyon. It was June 2022. We'd been planning the trip for weeks, 2 days away from the noise, a campfire, and photos of the sunrise over the hoodoos. I never imagined it would be the last day I'd see him alive. We set up camp in a small clearing near the edge of the forest, close to the Navajo Loop Trail. The weather was perfect, the sky clear. We had a light dinner, talked for a while, and went to sleep after 11. Around 3 in the morning, Eric woke me up by hitting the tent. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. All I heard was the wind, but he insisted. Said something was moving among the trees, something big. He went out with the flashlight, even though I told him to wait. I watched the light move between the trunks as he walked away. Then I heard a dull thud, like something heavy had been thrown to the ground. Eric screamed. I jumped out of the tent with my knife and flashlight, but saw nothing, only broken branches and silence. Even the wind had stopped. I shouted his name for minutes. The flashlight caught something on the ground. Footprints. Not from boots. Bare. Large, almost twice the size of mine, pressed deep into the damp soil. I followed them until they just stopped, as if whoever or whatever had vanished into thin air. By dawn, there was still no trace of him. I walked to the ranger station and reported it. We returned with a search team. They found his backpack about 50 meters away, hanging from a branch more than 2 meters high, as if someone had thrown it. Inside were his water bottle and camera. The last photos showed our campsite and one blurry shot aimed at the forest, where something tall stood partially hidden among the trees. The rangers were respectful but skeptical. They said probably an animal, maybe a bear. But what unsettled me most was what one of them muttered while examining the prints. "This isn't from any bear I know." They never found his body. His family came from Denver, set up a small cross by the trail, and left the next day. I still dream about that night. In the dream, I hear his voice calling me from the forest, but when I try to answer, something breathes behind me. I wake up drenched in sweat, with the feeling that someone's watching me through the window. I haven't gone camping since. And whenever I drive near Bryce Canyon, I always look toward the hills before dawn. In the deepest silence, when not even the birds are singing, I swear you can feel it, that it's still out there.
I'm Patrol Officer Maria Latham, Park Ranger at Bryce Canyon National Park for 16 years. On August 3rd, 2020, my partner, Ranger Tom Rayner, disappeared during a night inspection in the northwestern sector near the Peekaboo Loop Trail. I was the one who found him, or rather what was left. We set out at dusk to verify reports of screams and unauthorized lights in a closed-off area. Around 10:40 p.m., we split up as protocol requires. I went down the canyon trail and Tom climbed up toward the overlook. We stayed in contact over the radio. At 11:07, I heard his voice break through the static. He said, "Something big is moving between the hoodoos. Doesn't look human." I tried to respond, but all I heard was interference, a deep humming sound distorting the frequency. I reached the meeting point 20 minutes later. His flashlight was still on, lying on the ground, pointed at the rocks. The area was a mess, broken branches, disturbed soil, and parallel marks across the surface, as if something heavy had been dragged uphill. I followed those marks a few meters until they ended at a narrow gap between the stone pillars. The air there was thick with a metallic smell. I found his hat and his radio, bent, literally crushed. For 3 days, we searched with drones and canine units. The dogs refused to approach the exact area where he vanished. One of them lay down trembling. I'd never seen anything like it. The forensic analysis found no human blood, but they did recover a tuft of coarse, dark hair. Its cuticle structure resembled that of a primate, though it didn't match any genetic sample in the park's database. The main office classified the case as a disappearance of unknown causes, which in administrative language means they don't want further questions. But in the following months, several visitors reported strange noises in that same area. Heavy footsteps, deep breathing that grew closer, then stopped suddenly. One of the new rangers quit after claiming he saw a huge figure watching him from a ridge, the same ridge where Tom disappeared. Every time I pass through that area on patrol, I sweep the ravine with my flashlight. I never see anything, but I always hear the same sound, a sharp knock against the trunks, like a warning. Sometimes I think Tom didn't fall or get lost. I think something took him off the trail, and the same could happen to any of us if we keep patrolling alone in the dark. I still carry his radio with me, and some nights, when the static stretches too long, I swear I can hear his voice through the noise, asking me not to leave him alone.
My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 34 years old, from Flagstaff, and I've been camping across the Southwest since I was a kid. I know the land, the rules of the desert, and the sounds of its animals. What I saw in Bryce Canyon in October of 2021 is something I still can't explain logically. I camped alone near the northern edge of the park, where the terrain slopes down into the pine forest. It was off-season, almost no tourists, absolute silence. At dusk, I heard a dull thud, like a tree falling somewhere far off. I ignored it at first, figured it was just the wind, but then came another, and another. Rhythmic, as if someone were striking a trunk with a stone. Around 2 in the morning, something woke me. Not a sound, but a vibration. The ground trembled slightly as if something massive was moving nearby. I grabbed my flashlight and heard breathing, heavy, deep, just a few meters away. I shined the light toward the bushes. 2 red eyes reflected back, high up, at least 7 feet off the ground. The air left my lungs. I couldn't move. Then it growled. It wasn't an animal roar, it was a mix of air and power, a sound that went straight through my chest. The tent shook, and something struck it from outside. I crawled out, clutching my flashlight and knife. I didn't see its full shape, just a dark, massive form moving fast between the trees. The beam caught for an instant. A hand. Yes, a hand. Thick, long-fingered, covered in hair. Then the flashlight fell and went out. I ran without looking back. Behind me, I heard footsteps, heavy, snapping branches with every stride. When I reached the clearing, I tripped and rolled downhill. The impact knocked me out for a few seconds. When I came to, everything was silent. The tent was gone. My gear was scattered across the ground, and there were footprints, but not from a bear. They were wider, with a visible arch and 5 distinct toes, nearly 16 inches long. At dawn, I went straight to the rangers. They took my statement, checked the site, and told me it was probably a large animal, maybe a black bear. But I know what I saw, and it wasn't a bear. Since that night, I don't sleep in forests without light or people nearby. Sometimes I dream about that sound, the pounding against the trees, that roar. And when I wake, I tell myself that whatever was out there let me live that night, not because it couldn't catch me, but because it chose not to.